When my son found a new family, I told everyone I was happy for him. I smiled in the photos. I brought gifts to their housewarming. I even cooked his favorite rice and lentils the first time I visited their new home. But the truth is, I started disappearing long before I understood what was happening. The day I realized it fully was very quiet.
No argument. No shouting.
No dramatic words. Just a simple sentence from my daughter-in-law. "We'll manage, Mom. You don't have to come every Sunday anymore." She said it kindly,
Softly.
with a polite smile. And I nodded. Of course I nodded. Because I did not want to be the difficult mother. I did not want to look jealous. I did not want to become a burden. So I folded my hands in my lap. And I said, "All right, Beta. Whatever makes things easier for you." But when I went home that evening, the house felt larger than it ever had. The walls echoed differently. The clock sounded louder. And for the first time, I felt like a guest in my own son's life. I did not lose my son in one day. It happened slowly, like a door closing inch by inch. And I stood there, smiling. While it closed, my son, Arjun, was born on a rainy afternoon in July. I still remember the smell of the hospital room, the white walls, the nurse placing him in my arms. He was so small, so warm. When he wrapped his tiny fingers around mine, I made a silent promise. "I will always be here for you." And I kept that promise. His father passed away when Arjun was just 8 years old. A sudden heart attack. One morning he left for work and never came back. That day, my world broke in two. But I did not allow myself to fall apart. Because I had a child watching me. I worked double shifts at the tailoring shop. I stitched clothes late into the night. Sometimes my fingers would ache so much I could not straighten them. But when Arjun asked, "Ma, I always said,
No, Beta.
I'm strong." And I believed it. We were not rich, but our house was full of small laughter. Sunday mornings meant simple breakfasts and old songs playing on the radio. Exams meant sleepless nights together at the dining table. His dreams slowly became my dreams. When he said he wanted to become an engineer, I did not even hesitate. We cut down on everything. No new saris for me. No festivals celebrated in big ways. Every rupee went toward his education. I remember the day he received his job offer letter. He ran into the house waving it in the air.
Ma.
I did it. I cried that day. Not out of sadness. Out of pride. I thought, this is the beginning of his happiness. And for a while it was. He started working in the city. A big office. Air conditioning. People who spoke English fluently. He would come home on weekends at first. Then once every 2 weeks. Then sometimes only once a month. "It's busy, Ma," he would say. And I understood. Life moves forward. Children grow. Mothers must learn to let go. Scene transition. City skyline at dusk. Office building lights. A mother waiting by a window. When he told me about the girl he met at work, I listened quietly. "She's very smart, Ma. Very independent." I smiled. "Does she respect you?" I asked. He laughed. "Of course, Ma." That was enough for me. When he brought her home for the first time, I prepared everything myself. I cleaned the house twice. I wore my best sari. I made all the dishes he loved growing up. She was polite, soft-spoken,
Modern.
She touched my feet and said, "Namaste, Ani." I gently corrected her. "Call me Ma." She smiled again. But she never did. I ignored the small things at first. The way they whispered in the other room. The way decisions were discussed privately. The way my suggestions became optional. It was natural, I told myself. This is what happens. Children build their own homes. Still, something shifted. I could feel it. Not sharp. Not painful. Just distant. Like a train moving away slowly. And I was standing on the platform, waving. Long after it disappeared from sight. The wedding was beautiful. Not too grand. Not too simple. Just enough lights. Enough flowers. Enough smiles to convince everyone that life was moving exactly as it should. I watched my son sit beside his bride. He looked confident.
Happy. Grown.
There is a strange feeling a mother gets on her son's wedding day. It is pride. And also something else. Something that feels like stepping back from the center of a room and letting someone else take your place. But I told myself this is how it should be. I had raised him to build his own world. Now he was building it. Scene transition. Wedding lights fading into soft morning light. Gentle instrumental music continues. After the wedding, they moved into a small apartment near his office. He insisted I visit often. Ma, you must come every Sunday. We'll eat together.
So I did.
Every Sunday. I would wake up early, cook something special, take 2 buses across town. When I reached, I never rang the bell impatiently. I always waited quietly. Sometimes they opened the door smiling. Sometimes they looked rushed. Ma, we were just about to go out, he would say. And I would reply, oh, it's okay. I'll sit for a while. I never stayed too long. I did not want to disturb. At first, Sundays were warm. We ate together. We talked about his office stories. We laughed. But slowly, the rhythm changed. Phones on the table. Messages being checked. Plans being discussed that did not include me. I would sit with my cup of tea listening, smiling, trying not to feel like furniture in the corner. It never happens in one big moment. Distance. It grows quietly. One Sunday, I brought homemade sweets. My daughter-in-law said gently, we don't really eat much sugar now. I nodded. I didn't know, I replied. She meant no harm. But I felt something inside me adjust. Like I was learning a new language I had not been taught. Another time, I offered to help arrange the kitchen. She said kindly, I have my own system, Ma. My own system. I repeated those words in my mind on the way home. Of course, she should have her own system. It was her home. But where did that leave me? Arjun began calling less frequently. He still called. But the conversations became shorter. How are you, Ma?
I've fine. Beta.
Did you take your medicine? Yes. Okay, I'll call later. We're heading out. Later often meant next week. I never complained. I told myself young couples need space. I reminded myself that I had once been young too. But the silence between calls began to stretch. And I started filling it with memories. The first time I truly felt replaced was on a festival. It was a day our family had always celebrated together, even when we had little money, even after his father passed. That morning I woke early. I cleaned a house. I prepared the same dishes Arjun loved as a child. I waited for his call. None came. By afternoon I called him instead. He answered cheerfully.
Ma.
Happy festival. Happy festival, Beta. When are you coming? There was a small pause. Oh, we're at her parents' house today. We planned it last week. I said nothing for a second. Oh, that's nice, I replied softly. You should have told me. I wanted to say, but I did not. Because I did not want to sound demanding. After the call ended, the house felt heavy. The food on the table looked untouched. I sat alone and ate quietly. The sounds of neighbors celebrating outside reached my window. Laughter. Music. Firecrackers. Inside my house, only the ticking clock. That was the day I understood something. I was no longer the center of his celebrations. I had become optional, After that, I tried harder. I told myself maybe I was holding on too tightly. Maybe I needed to modernize. So I stopped bringing food without asking. I stopped giving advice unless requested. I stopped calling first. I wanted to be easy,
light,
invisible if necessary. But invisibility comes with a cost. One afternoon, I overheard my sons say something that stayed with me. They did not know I was in the kitchen. His wife was speaking softly. I just feel like we don't get enough privacy when your mom visits every week. He replied, "She means well." "I know," she said, "but we need our own space." There was no anger in her voice, just honesty. And that made it harder. Because how do you argue with honesty? I stepped out quietly, pretending I had heard nothing. We ate together that day as usual. I laughed at the right moments. I asked about their work. But inside, something had shifted again. A small crack. Not visible, but real. A week later, my son called. "Ma, maybe you don't have to come every Sunday. You must be tired traveling." He sounded careful, gentle, like he was protecting my feelings. I understood the meaning behind the softness. "I'm not tired," I said lightly. But he continued, "We just need some time to settle into routines." Routines. Another new word. Another adjustment. I paused. Only for a second. Then I answered the way a good mother should. "Of course, Beta. You focus on your life." There it was. The beginning of my quiet exit. The following Sunday, I stayed home. I made simple tea. I did not cook a feast. I told myself this is maturity. This is love. Letting go without drama. But that afternoon felt longer than usual. I kept glancing at the clock. Out of habit. Out of hope. My phone did not ring. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The fan rotated slowly above me. I asked myself a question I had never asked before. When did I stop being needed? Was it gradual? Or had I missed a moment? I remembered his small hand holding mine years ago. I remembered his voice saying, "Ma, don't ever leave me." And now, I was the one being gently asked to step back. I did not blame him. Truly, I did not. He was building a life. But I could not ignore the emptiness growing inside me. A mother prepares her whole life to give. No one prepares her for the day when giving is no longer required. Soft piano returns. Slow fade. I began to understand something painful. My son had not chosen to leave me. He had simply chosen to grow. And in his growth, I had slowly become a shadow in the background. After the Sundays stopped, everything became quieter. Not just in my house. Inside me. At first, I told myself this was healthy. This was normal. Young people need time. But weeks passed. Sometimes I would look at my phone and realize 3 days had gone by without a message. Then 5. Then 7. I stopped counting. When he finally called, I answered quickly. Always quickly.
"Ma, sorry.
Work has been crazy." "It's all right, Beta," I would reply. And it was not a lie. I understood responsibility. I understood pressure. I had carried both on my own shoulders for years. But understanding does not remove loneliness. One evening, Arjun called with excitement in his voice. "Ma, we're hosting a small dinner this Saturday. Some colleagues are coming. You should join us." My heart lifted. "Of course," I said. I prepared carefully. Not too dressed up. Not too simple. I reached early as always. The apartment looked different. New curtains. Modern furniture. Framed photos on the wall. In those photos, I saw them smiling with friends. With her family. Vacations I had never heard about. Moments I had not been part of. I smiled anyway. Guests arrived. Young people. Confident. Speaking quickly about projects and travel plans. I sat at one corner of the sofa, listening, trying to follow conversations filled with words I did not fully understand. At one point, someone asked my son, "Do your parents live in the city too?" There was a pause.
Just a small one.
"My mom lives nearby," he said. He did not add more. He did not say how many nights we had stayed awake studying together. He did not say how many years I had worked without rest. Of course he did not. Why would he? It was not relevant to their discussion. Still, I felt smaller. As if my history had become a footnote, went into the kitchen to help. Old habit. His wife was arranging plates. "Ma, please sit. We'll manage." "I don't mind helping," I said gently. She smiled, but her tone was firm. "It's okay. I like doing things my way." My way. Again. I stepped back. As I returned to the living room, I heard soft laughter from behind me. Not mocking. Not cruel. Just natural joy between two people building their world together. And I realized something. They did not need me there. I was not a pillar in that room. I was a guest. A respectful guest. A month later, I decided to visit without planning too much. Not to intrude. Just to surprise them with mangoes from the market. He used to love mangoes. When I rang the bell, there was hesitation before the door opened. They both looked startled.
"Ma?"
"You didn't say you were coming." "I was nearby," I lied softly. I was not nearby. I had taken 2 buses again. Inside, the house looked busy. Laptop open. Papers scattered. "We were just about to leave," my son said. "Oh," I replied quickly. "I won't stay." There it was again. That feeling of stepping backward before anyone asked. His wife said kindly, "You could have called first, Ma." I nodded. Yes, I should have. The mangoes stayed on their counter. On the way home, within I 10 kept thinking, when did visiting my own son require permission? But then I corrected myself. It was not about permission. It was about boundaries. Young couples talk about boundaries often. I had never needed that word before. Family was open doors. Now, it felt scheduled. One afternoon during a phone call, he mentioned casually, "We're going to her parents' place next weekend. They've been asking." I smiled. "That's good." He continued, "They help us a lot. Her dad even assisted me with some investment plans." Investment plans. I did not know he was investing. He had not mentioned it to me. It was not about money. It was about involvement. Her parents were part of decisions, part of discussions, part of their future. I was informed later. That night, I looked through old albums. Pictures of our June school days. His college farewell. Our small birthday celebrations at home. I wondered if one day those albums would stay closed forever. If the stories inside them would slowly fade. The real shift came one evening. I had gone to their home because my son said he was unwell. Just a small fever. But a mother does not measure illness in degrees. I brought soup, medicine, concern. They did not expect me so early. As I placed my bag down, I heard voices from the bedroom. His wife's voice was low but clear. "I just think we need to think about the future." "What do you mean?" he asked. "If we plan to move abroad, it will be easier if we're not tied down." There was silence. Then he said quietly, "She's alone." Another pause. "We can support her financially," she replied gently. "But we can't shape our entire life around her." My heart did not break loudly. It folded inward. I stepped away before they came out. I entered the kitchen and began heating the soup as if I had heard nothing. When they joined me, I smiled. "How are you feeling, Beta?" "Better now that you're here," he said. And I believed he meant it. but meaning something in the moment
Cancel
does
the
not. Truth spoken before. Move abroad. Not tied down. Support financially. Those words stayed with me long after I returned home. That night, I sat alone at my dining table, the chair across from me empty. For years, I had believed love meant sacrifice, but I had never imagined I might become the sacrifice. Not intentionally, not cruelly, just practically,
Conveniently.
I asked myself a question I had been avoiding. If he left the country, where would I fit in his new life? Would I be a monthly video call? A birthday message? A bank transfer? I was not afraid of living alone. I had done it before. I was afraid of becoming distant in his heart, slowly replaced by routines, responsibilities, and a new circle that did not include me. And yet, I did not want to hold him back. I did not want to be the mother people whisper about, the one who cannot let go. So I decided something that night. If stepping back was what love required, I would step back completely, quietly, without tears in front of him, without guilt in his heart. But I did not know then that sometimes stepping back too far means disappearing altogether. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was folding freshly dried clothes when my phone rang. His name appeared on the screen. I smiled before answering. "Ma, are you sitting?" he asked lightly. My hands paused. "Yes, Beta." What happened? There was excitement in his voice. "We got it. The overseas offer. It's confirmed. We'll be moving in 3 months." 3 months. Such a small sentence. Such a big distance. I kept my voice steady. "That is wonderful news," I said. "It's a big opportunity, Ma. A better future." "I know," I replied softly. "You worked hard for this." He sounded relieved. "Thank you for understanding." Understanding. That word again. After we hung up, I sat very still. The clothes remained unfolded beside me. The room felt unfamiliar, as if the walls had shifted slightly while I wasn't looking. I had known this was coming. I had heard it in half-finished conversations. But knowing something is possible is different from hearing it confirmed. 3 months. That was all the time left before my son's world moved across oceans. And I would remain here. The next weeks were filled with planning, documents, packing, phone calls. They were busy, very busy. I visited only when invited. I did not want to interrupt the urgency of their new beginning. One afternoon, I sat on their living room floor, helping sort old papers. He picked up a childhood drawing, a crooked house with 3 stick figures. "Remember this, Ma?" he laughed. "Yes," I said, smiling. "You said the roof was too small for our dreams." He chuckled and put it aside. Not into the suitcase. Into a separate pile. "Maybe we don't need to take everything," his wife suggested gently. "Of course, not everything. Memories are heavy. Suitcases have limits." But I felt something else being sorted that day. Not just papers. Not just objects. Priorities. Future plans. And I was not in the main pile. It happened quietly.
No argument.
No raised voice. We were sitting at their dining table. He looked thoughtful. "Ma, we were thinking." I waited. "Maybe it would be easier for you to move to a smaller place. Something easier to manage." The house I lived in was the same house he had grown up in. The same walls that held our laughter. The same kitchen where I had stitched clothes late into the night. "It's too big for one person," he added gently. His wife nodded. "It would also give you extra money from selling it." Selling it. I felt the air change. I did not react immediately. I sipped my water slowly. "You want me to sell the house?" I asked calmly. "Not want," he corrected quickly. "Just suggesting. For your comfort." Comfort. The house was not comfort. It was memory. It was survival. It was proof that I had built something with my own hands. But I looked at his hopeful face. I saw concern, not cruelty. He
said
believed
quietly.
he was helping. That was the moment I understood something very clearly. My life had become a practical discussion, a logistical detail in their future. Before they left, one more festival came. This time, they came to my house. For a few hours, I cooked as always. Not too much, just enough. We sat at the same old dining table, the same one where he had studied for exams. But the conversation felt lighter, careful, avoiding heavy topics. At one point I said softly, "You must call me when you land." "Of course, Ma," he replied. His wife added kindly, "We'll video call often." Often. Another word that feels strong, but depends on time zones and busy schedules. After they left that evening, I stood at the door longer than usual, watching their car disappear. This time, I did not wave. I just watched. Because something inside me already felt like goodbye. The airport was bright, full of movement, announcements echoing through large halls. I walked beside them slowly. He carried 2 suitcases. She held documents close to her chest. They looked ready, excited,
young.
When the final boarding call was announced, he turned to me.
"Ma." His voice softened.
"Take care of yourself." I nodded. "Always," I replied. He hugged me
tightly.
For a moment, he felt like the small boy who once clung to my sorry. Then he stepped back. His wife hugged me too. "Don't worry," she said kindly. "We'll make you proud."
Proud.
I had always been proud. They walked toward security. They did not look back immediately. I stood there until they disappeared from sight. And then I smiled. Not because I was happy, not because I was brave, but because I did not want my last image in his memory to be tears. That night, I returned home. The house felt different. Not emptier, just final. I sat in the living room without turning on the lights. In the darkness, memories felt closer. I imagined him settling into his new apartment far away. I imagined their excitement. I whispered into the quiet room, "Be happy." And I meant it. Even if happiness meant I was no longer central. Even if it meant I became background. That was the turning point. Waiting for Sunday visits. Waiting for phone calls. Waiting for festivals together. Now there was nothing specific to wait for. So I had to decide something. Either I would sit inside memories, or I would create small new ones. The next morning, I opened every window in the house. Fresh air moved through rooms that had felt heavy. I rearranged furniture. I cleaned shelves I had ignored for years. I found old stitching supplies and set them out again. My hands were slower now, but they still remembered. Stitch by stitch.
Tête by tête.
Life does not end just because someone moves away. It changes shape. The calls came once a week at first, then sometimes once every 10 days. Not because he did not care, because life became busy there. Meetings, projects, new friends. I learned to speak less during those calls, to keep updates short, to ask about their world instead. "Are you eating properly?" I would ask. "Yes, Ma," he would laugh. His wife would appear on screen sometimes. "Ma, we tried cooking your recipe." I smiled. "That's good." There were no harsh words between us. No dramatic conflict. Just distance measured in hours and oceans. One evening during a call, he said something that surprised me. "Ma, you sound different. Happier." I paused.
Was I?
Maybe I was not happier, but I was calmer. "I'm learning," I said simply. "Learning what?" he asked. "To live without waiting." There was silence on the line. Not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. Weeks passed before I made the decision about the house. I walked through every room slowly. The bedroom where he once studied. The small balcony where we had watched monsoon rain. I touched the walls gently. Then I realized something. The house was not holding him. It was holding me inside the past. Memories do not disappear if walls change. They travel with the heart.
So
Something
I did.
I once thought impossible. I sold the house. Not because they asked, not because it was practical, but because I was ready. I moved into a smaller apartment nearby. Simple,
Bright.
easy to manage. For the first time, I chose something for myself. Not for survival, not for sacrifice, just for peace. And my new neighborhood. I met other women my age. Widows. Mothers whose children lived far away. We began sharing tea in the evenings.
We spoke about small things.
Recipes. Weather. Old songs. No one there knew my full story. And that felt freeing. I joined a small tailoring group. We stitched simple items for local markets. My hands grew steadier again. My days gained rhythm. I was no longer counting hours until a call. I was living between them. And slowly, I stopped feeling replaced. Because I understood something important. My son did not leave me to hurt me. He left because life pulled him forward. And love does not disappear when roles change. It just becomes quieter. One afternoon, a package arrived. Inside was a framed photograph. It showed my son and his wife standing in front of their new apartment. Below the picture, a small note. For the woman who built our foundation. I held that frame for a long time. Tears came then. Not heavy. Not painful. Just soft. Sometimes appreciation arrives late. But it still arrives. That evening he called. Did you receive it? Yes, I said gently. Ma, we wouldn't be here without you. There it was. Not spoken in front of colleagues. Not during busy dinners. But said clearly. Directly. And that was enough. Now, when I sit by my window in the evening, I no longer feel abandoned. I feel expanded, and my world may be smaller physically. But inside, it is fuller. I still miss him. Of course I do. A mother never stops missing. But I no longer measure love by proximity. I measure it by intention. When I cough during a call. He calls when he asks if I need money, even though I rarely do.
He has his own family now.
And I have learned to have my own life. Not as a replacement, but as a continuation. That if you are listening to this and feeling forgotten, I want to tell you something gently. Sometimes children do not leave because they stop loving. They leave because life moves them forward. And sometimes in their movement, we feel left behind. But we are not behind. We are the roots. Roots do not travel with the branches. They stay steady. They hold the ground firm. And even when the tree grows far above, it still depends on what cannot be seen. I used to think my son found a new family, and I was replaced. Now I understand something different. He built a new circle, and I stepped outside it for a while. But stepping outside did not erase my place. It only changed it. So I smile now. Not the forced smile at the airport. Not the quiet smile that hides tears. But a peaceful one. Because love does not end when children grow. It simply learns a new shape. And sometimes, that shape is quiet.